This is Chariot TV.
My precious Savior suffered pain and agony. He bore it all, that I might play with him.
Fire falls from heaven. It shows, hey, wait a minute, there really is someone up there. He really does exist. And I see this fire that fell from heaven. He must be really up there like Daniel 2:28 says that he is. I know there is a God in heaven. He's the one true God.
What it was 2,000 years ago is everything that God expected for it to be until the Lord comes back again.
The most frightening of them all, hell is a place that will last for all eternity. Revelation 14 and verse 11 says, and the smoke of their torment ascends forever and ever, and they have no rest.
We also know from reading the Bible that the soul is something that can be impacted by the truth of God's Word.
Social media for you preach come on in once your viewers 400 500 now we do no good panel on 5,000 50,000 no it's not going to be in the new penny the antenna ho chan the antenna
the devil never had a chance. It's tempting in every generation, I suppose, to wake up and look at the state of the world and think, oh no, he's getting us. No, he's getting his children. And friends, he's always had his children. God's people win. Faithful go to heaven.
What will your answer be?
Bible. And that's what it's saying. And it's saying,
shaping you out. And so when you look at the flowers and the trees you have in your building, you cut them, you shape them, make sure they look so clean and nice. That is God's way of shaping you. So you listen to sermons, preachings, they are supposed to shape us.
The reason the silver that I have is so pure is because it's been passed through the refiner's fire, hasn't it? All the impurities, all the corruption, all the pollutants have been burned out of it, and that is what is left, nothing but pure silver. And notice he says not once, not twice, 7 times.
We don't understand the word of God. That if we have all the properties in this world, and the soul is not able to live in Christ, what is the problem?
You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you. No question there, no doubt, no room for it's a possibility. There might be a chance. It's a 99% probability. This is a knowledge claim, and it's a knowledge claim that you can know.
See his shining face, pour it all, that I might play with him, might live. I stood condemned to die, but Jesus daily took my place. He bore it all, that I might live. In his presence live. My precious Savior suffered pain and agony. He bore it all, that I might play with him, might live. He broke the bonds of sin and set the captive free. Bore it all, that I might live. In his presence live. He bore it all, that I might.
Hello, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, depending on where you are watching us from. This is Chariot TV, and this program indeed is Digital Lectureship 2026, and we are live from our studio here on Chariot TV, and we really appreciate you for tuning in and joining the discussion this afternoon and this evening as you watch the program. My name is Shadrach Opon. I'm going to be your moderator for today. And yes, we have all the those that we need to have in the studio for Juvedio and Asha Digital Lectureship 2026. And I said, din. Echego ewo Chariot TV, so ewo Church of Christ TV on Facebook. If you are on TikTok is Chariot TV, and YouTube is Chariot TV as well. I have some brethren here today. We're going to go quick because our speaker will have other engagement, and so quickly I have Jonathan in the house. Joe, Jebo, and we are starting.
Abba, we are starting.
Yes,
starting
sir.
today. We are live.
Yes, sir.
Let me remind brethren to just hashtag DL2026 and just tag people. Let them share. Let them share the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's all that we are trying to do. Let them share the gospel.
Sir. Yes, sir. We have Daniel Fosu Asamoah in the house. Danny, Emma Ajo.
Mejimusu Minianum.
Now,
say, Nyamiado Mehoye Pa. Many say this year, dear, no, I will take active involvement in it.
Yes,
this exercise has been very important to some of us and a lot of people. And I think Mutimba Kwamufaya, such a time as this, this is what we need. And I believe we all spread the news and everybody will get involved so that we can stand for Christ in whatever that we are doing.
Yes, sir. Today we are looking at the overview, all the books, more like bringing all the books together and then looking at the overview of the minor prophet. Our speaker is already in the house. And what do you have to say about the program, the topic, the speaker, before we go into it?
I think it is very, very important in our time because when we read Romans chapter 15 and I think 1 Corinthians chapter 10, I'll say the actual two it's been written for our learning. And I believe these topics are important for us. So we are going to look at how the setting and the themes and in these minor, let's say, prophetic books will resonate with our time. And I believe our speaker is in such a good position and has the word of knowledge to help us with this exercise. I checked about his background. I think he started preaching. His first preaching was done when he was 9 years old. And if you look at the many people that he has mentored, I believe he's in a position to help us to see how the setting and the themes in these books will resonate in our time so that we can also learn lessons from all that have been written down for our learning. Romans chapter 15 and then 1 Corinthians chapter 10.
All right. So that's it. We have someone who is well versed in the scriptures. Brother BJ Clark has been preaching for a long time, and so having him today is really a great joy to many of us. And I'm sure there are thousands of people who are there watching and will be watching later on. Today being a Saturday, I know people are engaged in other stuff, but yes, they will be joining as we go through the show. So, Joe, we have some sponsors who have been helping us. Northland Church of Christ, and then we have Doorstep Clinic in Takoradi. So then I walk to our sponsors.
Yeah, our brother has been helpful. The sponsorship has been great. It has been massive. They help us. They always carry us through. But I think brethren who join in will always has always been helpful because they come in, and not only do they don't sponsor materially, but they sponsor by sharing.
Mm-hmm.
They sponsor by sharing. Boys number na my memfa akonya nso nka ansa na bia me refi. So abaso engage platform. Let us know where you're watching us from. Drop a comment in the comment section, whether it's Facebook or YouTube. Just drop a comment where you're watching us from. Someone is saying he's watching us from live Ajamesu. Yes, let us know where you're watching us. If you're watching us from London, let us know. If you're watching us from Antwerp, let us know. New York, let us know. Even if you are watching us from Budapest, we are expecting Budapest people to join us. So and Mali phone swaba, most Mali phone number. Just let us know where you're watching us from. Engage the content so that we can really push the gospel out there for people. I've seen Ablikuma. Yes. Ejahamon. Yes, I've seen Ablikuma Accra. Wabani de no aba. Ejahamon.
Don't come on.
Wabani no aba. And let us know where you're watching us from. Just drop the comment in the comment section and tag people on Facebook. Let us get people watching the Digital Lectureship, and to be helpful and insightful as well. So that's much I think it's a canon. Minimara
comment number ba yankin kan
comment number yankin comment kakra. Yes, yankin kan comment in kakra. I'm kind some comment to be a abba in a baby to me who say Emmanuel Samoa Barton is watching us from Cincinnati, Ohio. Who said Baffle Cramping the Roy has hashtag DL2026. Let's do hashtag DL2026 so that we get the message out. Let me see. Antonio Pong is watching us from Mali. He says, thank God, thanks to Almighty God and Chariot TV. Yes, there are more comments that we can, but let us know where you're watching us from. Lawrence Kwam is saying that Germany is 9 p.m. in Germany, and we have our brother from Sunyane that is watching us. Let us know where you're watching us from. Drop a comment in the comment section. And when the speaker is speaking, let's engage the content. We have our mother Doris Osei from Italy. Italy, They're watching us from Kumasi now, not Italy. Let's. So Rashada, I think that's it.
Yes, yes. Danny, your final words as we go to Studio B and pick our speaker for today.
I think we are going to learn a lot, and I entreat Braden to share the links as we have indicated, so that we can all learn. At this time, these are some of the opportunities created for us to learn, and I believe the preacher has the experience that is required for us to learn a lot from. So I believe we all put ourselves into it, and then we all enjoy what will be given to us so that we can also translate them into practical realities for the benefit of our hearers wherever we find ourselves.
All right, that was Daniel Ofosu Asamoah. It was for this is the time to really transition into the next level. But before we go, that I want to remind you that our website is still running. We're going to have this program live on it on www.chariottv.com. You can also download our mobile app on App Store or Android. What do they call Play Store? And you can get our mobile app, Chariot TV app, or Chariot TV. Just search for it, and you can download. You have tons of lessons going on over there. And so I entreat that you try to do that, and you will be fine. But before we go back to our speaker, let's watch this short promo about our website and our mobile app.
Two churches, one mission. Ready for something different this August? Chariot TV, your single source of truth, and Church of Christ TV bring you the Digital Lectureship 2026, 15 days, one powerful theme. Minor books, major messages. We're exploring the major messages of the minor prophets. Speakers, the voices you've probably skipped over, but really shouldn't have. Catch it live every single night, starting Saturday, August 1st, running through August 15th, 7 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, 2 p.m. Central. Brought to you by Chariot TV and Church of Christ TV. Supported by Northland Church of Christ, Columbus, Ohio, and Doorstep Clinic. Head to www.chariottv.com. And don't forget to follow us on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
I cannot hear you, I'm afraid.
You don't hear
I don't
me.
know. Can you hear me all right?
I can. I
You
can hear
me?
you.
Okay. I could
So-
hear you a moment ago when the commercial was playing, but right now I can't.
You can't hear
I
again.
can not hear you, unfortunately.
Oh, wow. Wow. Let's see. Probably we can.
I'm looking to
be
see
back.
if there's. I've got everything unmuted, so I'm not really sure what the right thing to do here is. Let me see here.
So, well, we will bring our speaker back. He cannot really hear what we're saying. I guess it's technical hitches, and we'll be right back as we wait to engage him. Remember, this is Chariot TV, and we are live on Church of Christ TV as well. We are on Facebook and YouTube. You can just tune in any of them, and I guess our speaker can hear us now. Can you?
I still can't hear you.
No, he still cannot hear me. And so we will ask our technicians to just step in and see how best we can get him live on the show. This is Chariot TV. We'll be right back.
This is Chariot TV.
Yes, so we are still here on Chariot TV. We will be getting to our lesson momentarily. And as we wait to engage, get it involved, make sure our speaker can hear us. Once he hears me, he can. Okay, so the technician suggests that he steps out and then comes in again, and maybe try and use Chrome and see if yes. So let's technician, you can. I think you can send that information to him through the private chat, and then probably we'll be able to get him back on the show. Remember, this is Chariot TV, Digital Lectureship 2026. Please, will you mind if you can share the video, share with a statement by saying, "Hey, this is something that I'm watching on Chariot TV about minor prophet. Will you like to, Joe? Yes, I say
And say, when you are sharing, share, just hit the share button. Whether you are
watching
watching on Facebook, you just
some message way.
Yes.
Pick this message and just put it on way as you share.
Let Brendan share. But let me read some few comments that I've dropped in as we wait for our speaker to prepare him. There are comments from our brother Robert Hammond. Glad to see you, brothers. Particularly start people. Yo, is watching us.
Kabibi about Brother Hammond. Brother Hammond has been following Digital Lectureship how many years now? Like 6 years, almost every year. And interestingly, he and his family every year.
Yeah, but I think our speaker can hear us now.
Great. Brother BJ, I understand you can hear me now.
I can hear you now. Can you still hear me?
Awesome. Good.
Yes.
Good to have you here, sir.
It's great to be with you. Sorry about the technical difficulties.
We understand. So we know that this is more like your 5th time on Digital Lectureship.
Yes.
5th time. We really appreciate your effort and what you've been doing for us. This year, minor prophet, major messages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've enjoyed every time I've been with you, and what a great theme you have. Every year you've had good themes. This one is hard to beat.
Yes, sir. We appreciate that so much. And we really look up to what the Lord has for us through you today.
I appreciate it. I hope to be able to do a job that he would be pleased with.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So as we will turn just a minute, and we will have you live on the show as you present your message.
Sounds good.
My precious Savior suffered pain and agony. He bore it all, that I might live with him. He broke the bonds of sin and set the captive free. Bore it all, that I might live. In his presence live, he bore it all, that I might see his shining face. He bore it all, that I might live. I with him might live. I stood condemned to die, but Jesus daily took my place. He bore it all, that I might live. In his presence live.
Please, you can start.
67 chapters. That's how many chapters are in what we call the minor prophets.
Etire edusiansia. Eno ne etire a ewo de friend no minor prophet.
It's a challenge to try to take all 67 chapters and summarize them in just one message.
Ade den se meboabo ni nyina no na matimi abo ne tofa ewo assemble akomu.
There are dozens and dozens of wonderful points to be made from these 12 books, but we're going to focus today on two major points with lots of subpoints.
Onyema pi a metimi ayi na mapone afiri sa nhoma yi mu. Nanso so enne no nyema mienu titiru ana magina so na makasa.
If you read all of the minor prophets, you will see two things stand out. Number one thing you will see is this: judgment is coming. Judgment is coming.
Se okenkan edifo human ketwa yi a yesu ahwade yi a ade mienu ana gina brane yedi nkan obehu ene se atemu ba.
Now, most of the material in the minor prophets was written to Israel and or Judah, but that doesn't mean that some other nations were not a part of the discussion.
Enema pi a ewo sankratai na homa yi mu no ye kire ema Israel for ana Judah for nanso ne kire se enema ewo mu no ya amfa amaya hodo ho.
We know from the scriptures that God loves all nations and he wants all nations to be his and to follow him.
Yenim o kire se mu se Yakobon do amay nyina na opesa amay nyina ba ne nchen na amay nyina di na kire.
Listen to what the psalmist said in Psalm 33, beginning at verse 12.
See, the anyom twirafo no kae wonyom ete aduasanson yi mu dumienu no.
Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord.
Inshira ene oman a wawurade ene Onyankopon.
The Lord looks from heaven and he beholds all the sons of men.
Nyankopon hwe efiri soro na ohunu nipa nyinara.
From the place of his habitation, he looketh upon all the inhabitants of the earth.
Baby a wote ohwe wiase aman nyinara.
And notice this next line because it shows us that God is no respecter of persons.
Na hwe de etwato ensemfo a wotwato yi ekire se Nyankopon nye nipa nim yi mu.
The text says he fashions their hearts alike and he considers all their works.
The chatwan and some full chatwan say, "Oh, no, or ye wa kumasa, now ye win kumasa, send ope."
And the minor prophets show us that God is no respecter of persons when it comes to nations.
Now, a different human could humai, a chain say, Yankopon, any penny with you, say a Kanyakopon, sin patia.
He loves all nations.
Opame or Damena.
And he expects all nations to follow his word.
Now, he said, Amena bedi na cemetery.
At the beginning of the book of Amos, God finds fault with the conduct of several nations that surrounded Israel and Judah.
Se uhwe Amos krataa no ne nhyase no a Nyankopɔn hu mfonso a na ɛwɔ aman ahodoɔ bi ho a ɔhyɛ kasa fa ho.
He condemns Syria and Philistia and Tyrus.
Obu Syriafoɔ ne Philistiafoɔ ne Tyresefoɔ ɛfɔ.
And he also condemns Edom and Ammon and Moab.
Na ɔkasa tia Ammon ne Moab nso so.
God tells all of these nations that he is sending judgment. Judgment is coming for all of these nations.
Nyankopɔn kasa kyerɛ aman yɛ nyinaa sɛ n'atemmu ɛreba na ɔsoma n'atemmu aba wɔn so.
Also, Assyria, not Syria, but Assyria, they also failed God's examination.
Na ɔman Assyria nye aman Syria na ɔka aman Assyria ho asɛm so ɔmo nso so ɔman nuru Nyankopɔn ti susuo so.
We know that's true because Jonah was sent to preach to Nineveh because their wickedness had come up before the face of God. Jonah chapter 1 and verse 2.
Yenim sɛ saa na teɛ efiri sɛ Jonah nso so yɛsoma ne ma ne kɔka asɛm no kyerɛ Assyriafoɔ wɔ otusua deɛ wɔ Jonah krata de tire baako ne yimu mmienu no a yehu no wɔ hɔ.
And Jonah was sent to preach to them and to call them to repentance.
Na Jonah yɛsoma no kɔ nkyɛn sɛ wɔnkɔ ka adwensakyerɛ asɛm na wɔnane wadwene mmra Nyankopɔn nkyɛn.
You read about this in Jonah chapter 3 verses 4 through 10.
Yɛka wei ɛwɔ Jonah nhoma ne tire mmiɛnsa ne yimu ɛnan ɛbɛdu no.
Now, the fact that God sent a preacher to Nineveh shows us that God thought the Ninevites were under his command and control.
No kwasɛm a ɛkyerɛ sɛ Nyankopɔn soma odiifoɔ ma ne kɔ Ninewi no ɛkyerɛ sɛ Nyankopɔn ɛpɛ sɛ aman nyinara ɛba ɔno Nyankopɔn tumi ase.
After Jonah preached to the Assyrians, God saw their works, that they repented, and he decided not to punish them at that time.
Jonah ɛkasa ɛkyerɛ Assyriafoɔ yi wieɛ no, Nyankopɔn hunu wadwensakyera na ohun wadwensakyera no Nyankopɔn anyɛ deɛ na ɔpɛ sɛ asotwe ɔde ba wɔmfa ama wɔn so.
And I would like to tell you that they lived happily ever after, but there's another minor prophet book called Nahum, and it was written about 100 years later, and it condemned Nineveh and told them their judgment was coming.
Kameni bɛgye sɛ ka bɛka kyerɛ wo sɛ ka ɔmo kɔɔ so tena ase anigye mu saara nanso so deɛ teɛ ne sɛ nhoma baako nso a yɛfrɛ no Nehu ɛda na di sɛ Nyankopɔn ɛde asotwe ba ne Ninewi kuro ya so a Jonah di kan kɔɔ hɔ no ɔmo dane wɔn ho.
In fact, Nahum chapter 1 and verse 8 says that God would judge them like an overrunning flood and make an utter end of the place.
Na usua deɛ wɔ Nehu nhoma ne tire baako ne yi mu nwɔtwe no a na Bible no mɛte asɛ sɛ na ɔde nsuo a ɛyiri sram so ɔbɛba n'atamfo sibere ayere na ɔde abu afa wɔn so.
Now, the judgment upon these nations was not arbitrary. It wasn't just something God did because he was in a bad mood that day.
Atemu ɔde ba aman ahodoɔ yi so no nyɛ Nyankopɔn bosire mu ka sɛ Nyankopɔn oni atenka bia ɔbɔ ne tiri mu a na wafa no ho na wakɔsɛ aman yi.
No, God's examination of the nations revealed one common underlying cause for all of their other sins.
Nyankopɔn hwɛ mu wɔ aman yi nyinaa ho da na di adeɛ baako a na ɛnante saa aman yi nyinaa esu ho.
And that cause is pride.
Na saa adeɛ baako no ne ahantan.
Listen to Proverbs 16 and verse 5. Everyone that is proud in heart is an abomination to the Lord. Though hand join in hand, he shall not be unpunished. As you read the Minor Prophets, you're going to find that a number of nations were guilty of pride and thus were an abomination to the Lord.
Say onantena usua de wo adifo nkuma nhoma yi mu aye kasa ho no a ade ba kwa bohu se aman ahodo nyina bebre na no na dwe ahye wo ma.
When you read the book of Obadiah, you read about the Edomites who thought they were so high up above the ground that no army could ever harm them or touch them.
Say okenkan odifo Obadiah homa no a ubehunu ye kenkan aman bi ti se Edom ho asem a dwanti na omamma omabetri so tinsi se omuso chen aman nyina obi antimi ema wo ho.
But God told them in the book of Obadiah, I will bring you down. I will bring you down.
Na Nyankopon kan ewo odifo Obadiah homa no mu se mede mo baba fom.
Now, when you start thinking about the specific sins that these different nations committed, God gives them some very specific instructions about what they were doing wrong.
Se ohwe amaya ahodo nyina no bone pote ahodo pia na omo ya Nyankopon di iya no ahodo pote na ebebre won efa bone omo ye ho.
So why was God going to send judgment upon these nations? Number one, because of acts of discrimination. Acts of discrimination. The book of Obadiah tells us that the Edomites were guilty of showing discrimination against the descendants of Jacob.
Obadiah homa no na di kire se Edom foi na omo ye hwehwemu esam nipam na nipa kro omo sa omo eye Jacob na sefo.
You may recall that the Edomites were descendants of a man by the name of Esau.
Obekai se Edom foi no omo ye Esau na sefo.
And the Israelites were descendants of Esau's brother, Jacob.
Na Israel foi nso Esau no ne nua Jacob na sefo.
And you remember that Jacob and Esau had some real problems in the book of Genesis in getting along. They didn't get along very well for a long time.
Now bekai se Jacob ni Esau yi dia periye pa bebre Mose ho medin kan no mu and
even though they did make things better when their father died, their descendants never really did like one another.
Jacob ni Esau no kabo mu de nanso wo akire no wasefo one won ho ankakra.
And because of Edom's hatred of the Israelites, the book of Obadiah mentions several things the Edomites had done wrong to the Israelites.
Na Edom foi ta na mo etan omunya no muntino Obadiah homa no da na di enioma bia Nyankopon e de asotwe ne ba ho.
In Obadiah verses 11 and 12, God said they stood on the other side and watched with glee as foreigners entered into Jerusalem and carried its occupants away into captivity.
Na utia de Obadiah homa no de yimu edu ba ko du mienu no a Bible de na die se onfonso ba ko ne se wogina ho hwe kan e ma ananafo e be fom Israel fo e fa e de won ko numumfam.
And instead of helping the Israelites, their brothers, they looted the city and stole from them while they were being carried away captive.
Israel omo esaso bowura kro no mu afom Israel fo na amunuanom ne omafai ebere na ye fom won ede won akono mumfam.
And they also blocked the escape routes of the Israelites and turned them over to the enemy.
Na omo saso ekotwa won nuanom kuti ekogina ba bia omo fa adwane no also esi won kwan e de won koma won a wo chiche won de wakono.
And because of all of those things and more, judgment was coming for Edom.
We any bebre a omu ye yenti Nyankopon atemu e ba won so.
In the second place, it's not just acts of discrimination, it's the termination of innocent human life that would bring judgment.
Yetosu mienu enye se oye nipa mu yi mu nko ana de atemu ba na emom se ekra na onipa na nkwa edi bem a na wohwie ni mogya gu eno ho nso yade a na Nyankopon tia.
The minor prophet Joel condemned Egypt and Edom, quote, because they've shed innocent blood in their land, Joel 3:19.
Odipo Joel ekasa fa ho wo ite miensa ni mu dunkron no se wo mo ye nkofo a wo hwie mogya a edi bim eguo wa asase ne so eni nti Nyankopon atemu ba.
Amos confronted the nation of Syria for what they did to the residents of the place called Gilead.
Amos ekasa Asia kasetia Syria for de omoye please come again with the other nation.
You know, that's Amos chapter 1 and verse 3, and he told Syria that because of murdering the residents of Gilead, that they were going to be punished.
Enti wo Amos eteba ko ni mudu miensa no sene Assyria for ekunkum Gilead for no omo de omo ye nti Nyankopon betwe waso.
Now, this is hard to imagine, but we need to know what the Syrians were doing to the residents of Gilead.
We den se betwa mfonyini e wo ya dwenu nanso so e wo se yetimi hunu de na Assyria for eye kire won a wo tete Gilead no.
They would put them down on the ground, and then they would roll over them with threshing sledges that had teeth coming out of the wood as it would roll, and those teeth coming up out of that wood as it would roll would tear their bodies apart as they ran over them with their chariots.
Ndi de omo ye ne se od want to form na wo de dua wabobbo a mpia ewo mu nkakra e de ho na omamhunimnu wo mo a ma omananam foma abra omo de omo ti ase nam enam ho no na atete wo nipadua ne omo honam.
So judgment was coming for Syria.
The sentina Syria Nyankopon atemu e ba won so.
Amos also confronted Edom for some of the same things the book of Obadiah does.
Amos esa kasafa boni ana udifo Obadiah homa ne ka ho asem no o kasafa ho.
In Amos chapter 1 and verse 11, we read this.
Wo Amos homa no etire ba ko ni mudu ba ko ne yekenkan we.
Because he did pursue his brother with a sword, and did cast off all pity, and his anger did tear perpetually, and he kept his wrath forever.
Amos etire ba ko ni mudu ba ko no say Edom amumuyo miensa ne enan inti merin nane maso no na ode afna tia ne nua na ne yam anhyehye no na nabufo sei ade ara na oyo na bu ahuro no so ade da inti.
2 verses later, God confronts the nation of Ammon.
Say okay kan imu de to sumi de to asumi enu no a oman Ammon Nyankopon eni ondi nkomo.
It is because they have ripped up women with child of Gilead that they might enlarge their border.
Na dienti a oye Onyankopon ba won chen ensa ne se watete ma onyinsen Gilead ma onyinsen na wahye oye funu mu watete won se ne be ya ometimi aban wahye mu.
This is very graphic and it's not pleasant to think about.
They
were taking pregnant women and ripping open their wombs and taking their children out of their wombs, and so the mothers would die as they watched their children die.
Na the omo ye nyina ne se omo fa ba time ba omo onyin na oma twe omo mu ate omo mu na oma yi omo ma na maamefo na wu oma hwe omo ma na wu no omo nso awu.
Can you see why judgment was coming for Ammon?
Enti hunu de enti ana Nyankopon atemu eba Ammon so.
The minor prophet Habakkuk also confronted the Babylonians for building towns through bloodshed.
Habakkuk odipo Habakkuk nso ene Kadeafo Babylon no edi nkomo na opinche wo mo okasafa se omode mojahwiegu ebo wo man.
He told them in Habakkuk 2 verses 8 through 12 that they had established their cities by iniquity.
Okachire won wo Habakkuk humanity mienu no ni mu wotwe ba ne se omasisi omukuro enam mojahwiegu so.
And God promised the Philistines that he would take away the blood out of their mouths and his abominations from between his teeth. Zechariah chapter 9 and verse 7.
Well, Zechariah chapter 9 verse 7. Nyankopon ehye Philistine for ne bo se ne omo egbojahwiegu ntino beyi sa na firi won simu ene wanum.
This is such an ugly picture to think about.
We ade a enye kra ne ade a tan dia odwene ho ana e ha dwene.
But I want to ask a question. Are the methods that people use to abort babies today any less horrible?
Nioma kwan amanfo fa so e kan bojagu na e sei nyinsem no e papa chen bi.
And if God punished those nations with judgment because they were killing innocent babies, we need to take a lesson from that no matter where we live.
Se Nyankopon etwe amanya so fe omuhwe moja edibi mu guo ana moja guo sa kwan so a yenso so o se e fa desuade e firi mu.
In the next place, the people were going to be judged because they were spreading idolatry and immorality.
The twaso am pese me ka ho asem ene se amaya hodo yi Nyankopon bu wantan efi se woni je se ode abosomsom ene edwamammosem ebe tre o wiase.
The English word dissemination means to sow seed. It's like broadcasting seeds.
Brofokasa dissemination a okan ye no etese ogufuo bi gu aba na opete abanim na otugu nse asase so.
And it's sad, but the Gentile nations were very successful in sowing seeds of idolatry among the nations.
Awreho nanso so amamemu nsase ne amamemu aman ni nyina no eni bre ade a mutimi etre abosomsum se ne obi egufuo gu aba no.
When Alexander the Great did his conquests, he was spreading Greek culture as many places as he could.
Abra ura Alexander the Great eshase na obumfa maya hodo so de na woye nyina ne se Helafo kasa eno o de tretre ekwa aman so se de betimi.
These nations back in the Old Testament were using their influence to influence others to become idolaters.
Amaya wapam da danu mu no eyusu efa omo ankasa nkentenso so na nkentenso no so ema amai bebre ekwa abosumsum mu.
And another thing they were spreading is immorality.
De omosa asoso ede tretremu na oman edoso no eye edwamammosem.
If you can believe it, these people would claim to worship their gods by committing fornication and drinking wine.
So obegye di a saa nkrofo yi ese obetimi asom anyame ewa bra ogbo adwaman na onom nsa.
You read about that in Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 15.
Ya kan ho asem ewo difo Habakkuk mienu ni mu dunum no.
And Amos chapter 2 verses 7 and 8.
Ene Amos mienu yi mu nson ene nwotwe no.
They were also guilty of scattering God's people into captivity.
Omonso na omudifo wo se omupapa Nyankopon krofo mu ekọ numumfa mu.
Now, I want to make something very, very clear. Israel deserved to go into captivity because they had sinned and transgressed against God.
Na Israel fata se okonomumfa mu efise no mafom Nyankopon akwan.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 verses 64 through 68 tell us that the people would go into captivity because of their disobedience. Deuteronomy 28, 64 through 68.
Mose mu etosu num ne tire aduonu wotwe yi mu aduosia nan eba no e me ete ase se oman no bekọ nomumfa mu efise o mafom Nyankopon kwan.
But there were also times when some of these nations punished Israel without God's approval.
Na ye wo bere bi nso wo ho a aman wiase aman ni bi wo ho mokotwe Israelfo aso Nyankopon amakwan.
But there were times when they punished Israel with God's approval.
Na ye wo bere bi nso a omotwe Israel aso Nyankopon ma akwan sa.
But in some of those cases they went further than God wanted them to go.
Na ebere bi ebere Nyankopon ma akwan se wontwe bi aso na ebere bi wo ho a omotra aso che Nyankopon hwe se ko de ma omotra.
You can read about that in the book of Joel, chapter 3, verses 3 through 8.
But ma kan ho asem e ojo wo homa ne miensa ne mu miensa e ba tu wotwe no.
On a number of occasions in the books of the minor prophets, God warns the nation that the time is coming when they themselves will be the ones scattered.
Na bebre no Nyankopon ebo aman yi ahodo nyina akoko se ebere bi bedu wo mo anso so Nyankopon na beta so spread omo ana bo mahweti.
Because of their constant abominations, God's indignation was brought against them.
Wo amachiwade a omo yenti no bebre di ntino Nyankopon bu fuhyew eba won so.
And you read about that in Nahum chapter 1, verses 3 through 6. Although the nations would use their imaginations to try to stop God's promises, they were never successful. They were never successful in stopping God from doing what he wanted to do.
Amai bebre na use already omo ankase nyansa hwehwe se obesi Nyankopon trimu pokwan nanso wanim kunim.
I want to show you there in the minor prophets there is a divine domination of the nations.
Pese me dane di kire wo adifo human kuma yi mu a Nyankopon ankasa ewura mu dane ho adi kokasi mu.
I mean, think about it. Nineveh was an exceeding great city, but God was greater.
The
power of God was greater than the power of Assyria, Nahum chapter 1 and verse 3.
Nyankopon to me eson echen Assyria for to me nehu etire ba kuni mu dunsia ebutire ba kuni mu nsia no.
And the stronghold of God is stronger than the stronghold of any nation.
Nyankopon bambo ene ni pim a wasie no eden echen amai biara a obetimi asim.
Even the Edomites way up in the mountains of Petra.
Idom fompa na omuwo mepo Petra so a omasi pim no Nyankopon pim sie do eborosa.
In fact, the most powerful nations are like stubble in fire before God's punishments.
No krenie amaya kese na odi tumie no oyete se bidi a wokusa wojamu.
That's what Obadiah verse 18 teaches.
Sana Obadiah yimu du ochene kire.
And Nahum chapter 1 verses 9 and 10 also teach they're like stubble before the fire of God's judgment.
Sana nehu itire ba ku ni yimu nkron no so kire te se oye ade a se kusade a ye kusa wojamu.
Now, God's domination of the nations was so strong, he sometimes used nations as a tool of his anger to punish his own people.
Nyankopon den ye ene ne kesiye wo amanyi so no na eden pa eduru bempenso se o de amanyi etimi etwe ono ane mayaso.
There were many nations that gathered against God's nation, but they were never powerful enough to exterminate her once and for all.
Na ye wa amanya hodo be pi a eboabo wano esi mpimi ti a Nyankopon man nanso wo tumi na ntimi anye kese se obepepa Nyankopon man firi wiase ani.
You read about this in Micah chapter 4 verse 11 through Micah chapter 5 and verse 15.
Ye kan ho asem e Micah etie 9 ni mu du baako ene Micah etie num ni mu du num no du mienu no ba no se e wo sa kwan so.
And Nahum chapter 3 verses 5 through 19.
Ana nehu difo nehu etie miensa ni mu num eba dunsia no so.
And Habakkuk chapter 1 verses 14 through 17.
Na odipo Habakkuk huma ni tie baako ni mu du 9 eba dunson no.
And Habakkuk 2, 16 and 17.
Na Habakkuk etie mienu ni mu dunsia eba dunson no.
Now, the most powerful cities of Philistia would be no match for God.
Amai kesia no ekokroko ti se Philistia na omen Nyankopon kra.
The tool of God's anger, Babylon, would wipe them out in the middle of the day.
Nyankopon ankasa nsa no nyuma Babylon etimi pepa won ano wode ano egudi nkuguo ma odi nkuguo awia kirikirikiri.
Even in the heat of the day, they were able to win the victory.
Wo awia hyew mu kra no otimi di nkunim.
Zephaniah chapter 2 and verse 4 tells us that. Zephaniah 2, 4.
Zephaniah etie mienu ni mu 9 ekasa asem kire.
It was through Babylon that God would destroy Philistia and leave its land to be occupied by those whom Philistia had taken captive.
Nyankopon nam Babylon so anedi Philistia sunkunim se na be obeja wa asase ama won a Philistia fo di won kunim osunkunim ebre bi atwam.
That's Zephaniah 2, 5 through 7.
Ene Zephaniah etie mienu ni mu enum eba nson no.
And remember how I told you that pride was one of the biggest problems these nations had?
Kai se madika mo asha nso se adwane ahantan yade ana ha amanyi yade atemu ba won so.
In Zephaniah chapter 2 and verse 10, God tells the Moabites and the Ammonites their pride is going to be the reason he judges them. Zephaniah 2 and verse 10.
Well, difo Zephaniah etie mienu mu du no Nyankopon ka kire Amon ene Gomora ne Moab se wahantan ti ana wobeye won sa na wahantan ti ana wasopa won.
In fact, Zephaniah 2, 9 through 11 says that God would make Moab like Sodom and Ammon like Gomorrah.
Nyankopon ka kire sa mayi wo Zephaniah etie mienu mu nkon ekose Nyankopon bema Moab adane se Sodom na Ammon so adane se Gomorrah.
And if you know anything at all about Sodom and Gomorrah, you know you don't want to be like them.
Se unim bibiara efa ana unim bibi kakra bi kura fa Sodom ene Gomorrah ho a ene won pese ubeye sa Daniel sa man.
There was a time when the nations in the south, Ethiopia, would be slain by God's divine sword of judgment, chapter 2 and verse 12 of Zephaniah.
Ebere bi duya na amaya ewo atifi anafo fam no ebi te se Ethiopia fo no Yakopon afena atemu afena etwitwa won.
And the nations in the north, like Assyria, they would be left in desolation as well. Zephaniah 2:13 through 15.
Na amaya ewo atifi fam te se Zephaniah nso Assyria nso and Zephaniah chapter 2 verse 13 no won aman be ya amanfo.
You see, God was going to bring about an elimination of the nations.
Huni say Nyankopon e de obeyi aman hodo bi afiri wiase.
In fact, in Edom's case, Obadiah predicted, quote, they will be as though they'd never been. Obadiah 1:16. They will be as though they've never been.
So shenin so say wo Edom for FM no Obadiah kan wo Obadiah etedun so no say obey te say ne wantena sepen.
Edom would be a desolate wilderness. Joel 3:19.
Edom no be amanfo a asase pese a obi ante so.
And Assyria would be brought to an utter end. Nahum chapter 1 verses 8 through 10.
Na obesi Assyria ano kra Nahum chapter 1 say obesi wa ano kra o ma ontena se.
And God told them, I am against you, and I will burn your chariots in the smoke, and the sword will devour your young lions. Nahum chapter 2 verse 13.
Nyankopon ka kire won say mitia mo na mehye mo ntiase nam asekura ene mafena be te se jataburuwa se ne oka ho asem e wona chapter 2 no verse 13.
In Zephaniah chapter 2 13 through 15, Nineveh was told they would become dry like the wilderness.
Na usua de Zephaniah etemi ni mudu miensa no a Niniwi Nyankopon ka kire won se obewe te se esere so.
So Babylon had spoiled many nations, but God predicted to her that a time was coming when all the remnant of the people would spoil Babylon. Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 8.
Babylon and I say amai nanso so Nyankopon ka kire won say na bere bi beba won a waja won akire no e ba bese won muso saa. Habakkuk etiremienu ni mu nwotwe no.
The day would come when glorious Babylon would be filled with shame.
Ebere bi beba Babylon kese a won ani munyam no e be ahohora.
In Habakkuk 2:16, we find a very, very gross passage.
Wo Habakkuk etiremienu ni mu dunsia no yehunu Bible gina so a esenu mu pa.
When God served her the wrath of the cup of the Lord's right hand, Babylon would wallow in her own vomit.
Nyankopon se Nyankopon ede ne kuruwa na bufo kuruwa no emma wo se no mu a na a ekura ne nsanifa so a wo be fe ho.
And none of her idols would be able to stop this divine judgment from coming. Chapter 2 and verse 18.
Na wo ahonyini biara niwa ebetimi asi de ebe ho kwan.
You see, in general, God was going to cut off the nations and make their streets empty.
Wo we nyina mu no de pese betwa gina so Nyankopon ebeyi aman ya firi ho na won kuro mu ne won monten so adampan.
He would destroy their cities so that there is, quote, no man, there's no inhabitant. Zephaniah 3 and verse 6.
Obet say kroi Ekobi mpempenso a obiara mpo entena kuro no mu. Zafania etire ba ni mu nsia no.
God was going to gather the nations, assemble the kingdoms, to pour his indignation and fierce anger upon them. So says Zephaniah chapter 3 and verse 8. It might be good to read Zephaniah chapter 3 and verse 8.
Mekenkan odifo Zafania etire miensa ni mu wotwe no. Efiri se bebo yie pa se wo bekenkan efiri se Nyankopɔn eboaboa aman ne ekuru ahodo ano na wahwie na bufuo kuruwa no nsu esu kire agu sa aman yi so. Etiti akenkan no wo etire miensa ni mu wotwe wo Zafania no. Tie osofopanyini Joshua wo ne wonfefo wote manim no efiri se woye awanwafo na hwe mede makoa mefefe ba mereba.
Now, it's important to point out that the judgment that was coming was not just for the surrounding nations around Israel and Judah.
Besa o chane nsu yie pa se Nyankopɔn atemu a na eba no enye Israel fonko na emom amaya hodo nso a na edwetwa Israel ho hyiehia ena na ode atemu ne ba.
Because God is no respecter of persons, he was also examining Israel, the northern kingdom of Israel.
Enam se Nyankopɔn wi nipa nimu yi mu ntino na osanso ehwe Israel fo ewo atifefam no.
The ministry of the minor prophet Hosea was focused upon the people who lived mostly in Israel in the north.
Hosea na dwuma ne som nyina no odi ni dwuma ewo Israel for fa na ewo atifefam no omo ho na odi dwuma.
And he did not hold back when he told them divine judgment was coming their way. Why? Because of great whoredom in departing from the Lord. Hosea chapter 1 and verse 2, and also Hosea 6, 9, and 10.
Wantwentwene na ase se okakire won se Nyankopɔn atemu eba won so efiri se wodwamambo ene wadapa na wobo ewo kuro no mu nti usua de ewo Hosea etire baako ni mu mienu ene Hosea homa aka no mu a ohunu sa wo.
Unfortunately, Israel had become idolatrous like the nations round about her.
Arahosem nie se Israel fo nso so na omadane abosomsomfo se amaya etwa won ho ahia.
Do you remember that Israel wanted to have a king so they could be like the nations round about them?
Obekai yie pa se Israel fo no hwehwe se obenya ohene se ne be ya obeye te se amaya etwa won ho ahia.
But how did that work out for them?
Na ekosi won say
those kings led them into idolatry. Jeroboam did, at least in the north. And the northern kingdom never had a single good king. Every single king in the north was bad, was evil.
Amai ahimfui edi won da edane omai na dwene kodi abosomsomachi Jeroboam de hyase na amai ahimfo ahodo a wonya ne watififam wo nyina no obie ni wa na ohwe Nyankopɔn akira kwan abosomsom kuto.
It would be good to turn to Hosea chapter 4 and verse number 1 and to read the charges that God filed against Israel. He told them there's no truth, no mercy, nor knowledge of God in the land. Listen to Hosea 4 and verse 1.
Ebe boye pa se obedane otweresem akọ Hosea humanitarian ni mu baako na watie Nyankopɔn charge anan kwadu o de bo oman yi ene nioma okeka fa wo ho Hosea 9 ni mu baako no.
And let's read verse 2 because it says they were guilty of swearing, lying, killing, stealing, committing adultery.
Na yenkenkan ankodu mienu no ifise obobo ne mabiso muntie Awurade asem Israel man na Awurade ne asasosofo nya anya ham no kre ne adoye ne Nyankopɔn ho nimdie biere ni asase no so entanka nkontompo ne awudie ne krono ne awaresɛyɛ na ɛwɔ hɔ. Wɔdidi akakabensɛm na mogyahwieguo toatoa mogyahwieguo so.
And what does Hosea 4 and verse 5 say? It says, both the people and the priest would fall in the day that God came to visit them in judgment.
Na Hosea 8:9 yi mu nnum no se, adiifoɔ ne asɔfoɔ no wɔbɛsunti awia ketee ɛberɛ a Nyankopɔn bɛhyia wɔn.
In fact, in Hosea 4 and verse 6, here's what we read. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge.
Usuadeɛ yie paa kan a Hosea 8:9 yi mu nsia no ka sei, nimdeɛ a meman ni nti wɔbɛtwa wɔn gu.
Because they had rejected God, God would reject them.
Nanam sɛ wapɔ Onyankopɔn nti Nyankopɔn nso apɔ wɔn.
Because they'd forgotten God's law, God would forget them and their children.
Nanam sɛ wɔwura fi Nyankopɔn mmara nti Nyankopɔn bɛfi wɔn ne wɔn mma.
And do you remember what the common cause of sin was in the nations round about Israel? It was pride.
Na okay, sɛ bɔne a na etwa aman ahodoɔ nyinaa ho ahyia bɔne a na ɛyɛ ahantan.
If you'll listen to Hosea chapter 5 and verse 5, you will find out the cause of Israel's sin was also pride, and she would fall because of it. Listen to Hosea 5 and verse 5.
Sɛ wotie Hosea ahoma no tenum ne mu num a Israel ehwe ase nyinaa fi ahantan. Hosea 8:num ne mu num say Israel ahantan bedi nanim adanse na Israel ne Ephraim besunti wɔn amumuyɔ ho. Judah ne wɔn ho nso asunti.
And so Hosea predicted that Ephraim, which is another name for the northern kingdom of Israel, would be desolate.
Na Hosea kan sɛ Ephraim a ɛyɛ Israel fo din foforɔ no ɔmo nso so ɔbɛda mpan.
Chapter 5:11 said they would be oppressed and broken in judgment.
Etrenum ne mu du baako no sɛ ɔbɛpɛkyɛ wɔn na ɔbubu wɔn ɛwɔ atemmuo mu.
They would be eaten like a moth-eaten garment.
And
in chapter 5:14, he says they would be devoured like the prey of a lion.
Na sɛnea ɛkyɛnum ne mu du nan kan sɛ Ephraim no wɔbɛtete wɔn srɛ ne srɛ te sɛ deɛ gyata anya aduane die no.
Do you know what Israel tried to do to get away from the punishment God had promised he was going to send them?
Wonim deɛ Israel bɔ wɔn tiri mu sɛ ɔbɛyɛ Nyankopɔn atemu a ɔhyɛ wɔn bɔ sɛ ɔde ba wɔn so no.
God portrayed them like a silly dove flying to Egypt, then flying to Assyria, trying to get Egypt and Assyria to protect them.
Nyankopɔn twa mfonyini kyerɛ yɛn te sɛ abuburo ɔdan wɔn adi te sɛ abuburo a sɛbi onim nyansa na ohwiri kosi ha na ohwira kosi ha ohwira kosi to ohwiri kɔ Egypt afam na ohwira kosi aman hodo afam sɛ ɔhwɛ mmoa.
But Hosea 6:11 and 12 said they would be ensnared by God's judgment net.
Na usua de Hosea etensia ni ete nso ni mu du ba ko no ba o se na Ephraim adane se abuburo awemfo nti ninti na mefrɛ wɔfrɛ Misraim na wɔkɔ Assyria na Nyankopɔn de natemuo asa ɛbɛtwe wɔn.
They had made many altars for idols to commit sin.
Wasi afɔrebukyia bebree a ɔde asi wɔn ma ahonyini a ɔde di bɔne.
And they counted God's law as a strange thing.
Na obu Nyankopɔn mmara sɛ ade foforɔ koraa na ade a ɛyɛ ɔkyiwadeɛ.
And because of that, God would no longer accept their worship.
Nam senti Nyankopɔn apo wɔn ɛsɔreɛ a na wɔsɔreɛ no.
That's what chapter 7, 11, and 12 says in Hosea.
chapter etre edubako ene etre dumienu no sa na eka ekire.
In fact, God says Israel had, quote, deeply corrupted themselves. Hosea chapter 9 and verse 9.
Nyankopon asem wo Hosea etre numni etre nkroni mu nkron no se Israel fo no waye bone wakoboni mu sukopa.
And the prophet Hosea lamented what God said he was going to do to Israel.
Na odifo Hosea esiabubu na esiapini ewo de Nyankopon ebeye sa aman Israel.
Listen to Hosea 9 and verse 17, which says, my God will cast them away because they did not hearken unto him, and they shall be wanderers among the nations. Hosea 9:17.
Na utie Hosea etie kroni mu dunso a o se bi Nyankopon apo efise wantie no na obeye abatafo amanamamu.
The children of Israel had plowed wickedness, and they would reap iniquity. Chapter 10:13.
Israel for no wa funtum abonefosem na musuo no betwa.
In chapter 13:11, God said, I gave you a king in mine anger, and I took him away in my wrath.
Itire edumiansa ni mu duba akono se memam ohene bufo mu na meyi no manibere mu.
And then notice, if you will, please, that God told them he was going to have to send judgment. And in Amos chapter 4 and verse 12, he said, prepare to meet your God, O Israel. Prepare to meet your God.
Shanen so say, Nyankopon ka kire won so da temu beba. Nti usua de o Amos humanity 9 ni mudu mienu a o ka kire yen se sanse wansi nti se ho koshia Onyankopon atemu.
The Israelites were convinced that God would never punish them like that, but the book of Amos says clearly that he would.
Israel for no esi adwene pi na wadwene si pi se Nyankopon twe aso sa nanso udifo Amos homa no de na di se Nyankopon betwe aso.
Amos chapter 8 and verse 2 says this.
Udifo Amos 3 watwe ni mu mienu no eka sei.
The end has come upon my people Israel. I will not again pass by them anymore.
Ewiye no adru ama won me man Israel. Mere nkoso me nsan won hu bio.
But you know, judgment was also coming for the southern kingdom of Judah. Judgment was coming for Judah as well.
Na oni mi say na Nyankopon atemwo nso eba wo fomfam Israel for Judah nso Nyankopon atemwo ba.
Now Judah did have a few good kings, righteous kings.
Judah de omunya ahemfo a na kakra wo mu a na omoye papa.
And because of that, their nation lasted longer than the nation of Israel.
Nenam senti otena ase che kakra echen Israel for no.
But even Hosea predicted in Hosea 5:5, Judah also shall fall with them, with the Israelites.
Na Hosea kan ewo etire enum ni mu enum ne se Judah nso won so besinti se wonuanom.
The prophet Joel told the southern kingdom of Judah that a day of the Lord was at hand for them. Joel chapter 1 and verse 15.
Edifo Joel etire ba ko ni mu dunum no eka se Nyankopon da retwen Judah nso so. Joel chapter 1 verse 15.
The only hope for them was for them to turn to me with all your heart, and with fasting, with weeping and mourning. Rend your heart and not your garments. Turn to the Lord your God. He's gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and of great kindness. It would be good here to read Joel 2:12 and 13. Joel 2:12 and 13.
And that's why I want my one and then the Nyankopon kan ye wo Joel etire mienu ni mu du mienu ene du miensa na men kan na afa mu nso Erade na ose mu nsane mmra menchen makoma nyina mu na abuadadie ne esu ne adutwa mu munsunsane makomam na nya montade mu munsane mra Awurade mu Nyankopɔn nkyɛn na ɔyɛ ɔdomfo ne mɔborɔhumfo na ne bo kyɛrefu na dɔyɛ dɔɔso na onu ne ho wɔ adebɔne ho.
The prophet Micah, he saw visions about both Samaria and Jerusalem.
Odiyifoɔ Micah nso ehunu anisoadehunu ɛwɔ Samaria ɛne Israel ho.
And he said that Zion would be plowed like a field and Jerusalem will become heaps. Micah 3 and verse 12.
Na ɔkan ne pen sɛ Zion no obedwiri wɔn ɔbɛfa wɔn afa abɛfa sɛ afuo na Jerusalem adane aboɔ akuokuo na efie nso bepɔ adane kwaeɛ sonsomameɛ.
And in Micah chapter 4 and verse 11, he told them they were going to go to Babylon in captivity.
Na Micah 3:9 mu du baako no ɔka kyerɛ wɔn sɛ ɔmo bɛkɔ Babylon ɛwɔ nnommumfa mu.
The books of Habakkuk and Zephaniah continue this theme of how God was going to bring judgment even to Judah.
Odiyifoɔ Habakuk ne Zephaniah nso ɛtoa so asɛm korɔ no ara sɛ Nyankopɔn de n'atemmuo ɛreba Judah so.
But now in the last part of this message, I want to go to something happier, something more positive.
Na mede mekɔ deɛ mmensɛm nyinaa deɛ etwa toɔ no mekɔ anigyesɛm so ade a ebetumi ama ani agye ne nneɛma nkurahyɛsɛm kakra na ɛwɔ nhoma no mu.
We've told you that the first thing to learn from the minor prophets is that judgment is coming.
Yɛka kyerɛ wo sɛ ade a ɛdi nkan sɛ wosua ɛwɔ odiyifoɔ nhoma yi mu a yɛkenkan ɛne sɛ Nyankopɔn atemmu ba.
But I'm happy to tell you that the other main point made in the minor prophets books, joy is coming.
Na adeɛ baako nso a ɛtitiriw a asɛm titiriw a ɛnante ɛwɔ odiyifoɔ nhoma no mu nso ne sɛ anigye ɛba.
But how and when would this joy become available?
Na ɛkwan bɛyɛ so ne ɛbrɛ bɛyi ana saa anigye betumi aba mu sa.
Both Israel and Judah were taken from their homelands into foreign captivity.
Israel ene Judah nyinaa no yeyi wɔn efiri wɔn kurom ɛde wɔn kɔ nnommumfa mu.
But the joy would come when the journey home came.
Na anigye bɛba ɛwɔ abere a wɔn dane wɔn ho aba fie.
And you do see both the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom going into captivity, but you also see them coming home from captivity.
Na yehunu yie paa sɛ wɔn a na wɔ atifi ne wɔn a wɔ atɔyɛ ne nyinaa kɔ nnommumfa mu no wɔn saa ɛreba no na anigye aba.
Hosea had predicted that God would bring his people home, and Amos says the same thing in Amos chapter 9. I will bring again the captivity of my people.
Hosea nhoma na ka sɛ Israelfoɔ no ɔman no bɛsa aba afi nnommumfa mu aba na saa nso na Amos nhoma no so kaeɛ.
And so there were better times coming.
Enti na ɛbrɛ pa ɛba.
Joel chapter 2 anticipated the joy of the coming of the day of Pentecost.
Na odiyifoɔ Joel etire mienu no eyi asutire edidi a ɛbɛba ɛbrɛ a Pentecost da no ɛbɛtɔ.
This was the time when God's Spirit would be poured out upon those apostles, and they would teach the people how to become members of the church.
We bɛyɛ brɛ a Nyankopɔn honhom hwie guo ebegu edi asomafoɔ no so na wakyerɛkyerɛ ɔman no ɛkwan a obetumi abɛyɛ Nyankopɔn asafo no mu ba.
And I should point out that this was a joy not just intended for the Jewish nation, but for all nations. Isaiah said, all nations shall flow unto his house.
Na mami nyini tentem na mema nhyɛ ne nso sɛ saa enigye we enye Jewfoɔ no nko ana woni bɛgye na mmom aman ni nyinaa ne nkronkro ahodoɔ nyinaa wiase aman nyinaa ni bɛgye Is that now Odipo Isaiah Kanye Isaiah Humanitarian?
Let me tell you something to be looking for as you study the minor prophets.
Mamenka die bi a also wo hye ne so na hwehwe abra wo sua difo human kitwa.
Except for the book of Jonah, every other minor prophet book ends on a positive note, looking forward to what God was going to bring in the future when the Christ came, when the church came.
So we Jonah efiri mu a difo human kitwa yesua ni nyina aka nyina no ode wasem ba wiye no o kire de nyankopon ebeye no kire ho ebra na safo beba na hinie beba ne ne ba ne maye beba no.
And the minor, yes, and the minor prophets tell us the joy would come when Jesus would come.
Na edifo human kitwa yi ka kire yen se enije ne beba abra Yesu Kristo aba.
It was the minor prophet Micah who predicted that Jesus would be born in Bethlehem, Micah chapter 5 and verse 2.
Odifo Micah ana sheye se enije beba say abra ye wo aginkwa no e wo Bethlehem.
And it was the prophet Zechariah who predicted that the one who would come, whose name is the branch, would build the temple of the Lord, Zechariah chapter 6.
Odifo Zechariah ana kanye se di obeba obesi nyankopon asor dan no oye edua maye eho asem ana okanye.
And in Zechariah chapter 9 and verse 9, listen, behold, thy king comes unto thee. This is about Jesus, and it was fulfilled when Jesus rode upon that donkey.
Na Odifo Zechariah etenko ni mu krono eka ni pense di ahusie Zion if you say wo hene reba na wo hene na oreba no Yesu Kristo na oba na enemamu bai e wa bra Yesu Kristo etena efunumu ba so na ode call Jerusalem.
And Zechariah predicts that there would be a fountain opened for the house of David for sin and for uncleanness, and that is the blood of Jesus Christ. Zechariah 13:1 and following.
Na Zechariah etredu miensa yi mu bako eba no se ekire yen se obebue sutre a eba hohoro mfomso na se sutre no na Yesu Kristo boja obebue amabone fefiri.
And Malachi chapter 3 predicts, I will send my messenger and he shall prepare the way before me. That's about John the Baptizer.
Na Odifo Malachi miensa no so eda na di pefe se obesuma na no asem ni messenger na ode na sem aba John the Baptist hu asem Yohane Suboni hu asem anna woka.
And the end of the book of Malachi is also about how John the Baptizer would prepare the way for Jesus to come.
Na Malachi homa na wie ye kra no na di sene be kwan a Yohane Suboni be siesie kwan ama Yesu Kristo aba.
So to summarize, the minor prophets can be summarized with two thoughts. Judgment is coming and joy is coming.
Enti edifo homa no nyina edifo nkuma no edifo homa aye nkuma no nyina no se me bo ne tofa bomu no kire se niema mienu nsemfua mienu yedi nkan atemu ba na enije nso eba.
The New Testament teaches us there's a judgment day coming and that joy is going to be coming when that day comes, because we get to go be with God and live with him forevermore.
Apamfofo no na di pefe se atemu ba na atemu ne ba nso a ede enije ne beba if say sada no ye ne yawurade beko akotena na edi enije ene atena da.
And I thank you very, very much for listening today.
Na medawasi ye pa se wo ya so na utie me.
My precious Savior suffered pain and agony, he bore it all, that I might play with him. He broke the bonds bonds of sin and set the captive free. For it all that I might live. In his presence live, he bore it Jesus all, that I might see his shining face. For it all, that I might live. I with him might live. I stood condemned to die, but Jesus daily took my place. He bore it all that I might live. In his presence live.
Judgment is coming, and then when you flip it, joy is coming. Those are the summary that you can make when you go through the 12 books of the minor prophet. This is so much to do, and that is exactly what Brother B.J. Clark just did. He summarized 12 books in just an hour and some few minutes, and we really appreciate him for doing that. Overview of the minor prophet. Jonathan Mensah was a interpreter at the Maya. Yo, what about you? Na overview mpo na twi wo de foforo na Hosea me ne dey Hosea.
Well,
a lot of
the challenge with him doing it, with my experience with some of the speakers, the challenge with him is that he quotes a lot of passages with it, and it makes it difficult because it's Old Testament passages that we read them, but not much the same way we read the New Testament. It becomes difficult trying to get them exactly in the tree that we want to, but it's exciting.
Made the whole thing seem like a easy thing being wired. We're talking about 12 books, talking about the background, the content, and I'm just so excited about the lot that we have just had right now, and hoping for the rest of the lectureship lessons that we'll be going through. But BJ has somewhere to go, so we're not going to waste his time much. We're going to go straight away to the questions that are trooping in. Guys, we'll read your comment later, but if you have a question, just bring in your question and we will deal with it right away for you. Brother BJ Clark is in the house. Sir, are you cool? Are you cool means well done.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. I thought you were asking me if I was cold. Right.
We really appreciate. Yes, sir. We really appreciate your work and
well, I really appreciate the chance.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm glad you all are doing this. This is.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We know 2027 you will be with us as well, and like I've told you already, we hope to have you as a permanent speaker on our show anytime you have time.
I would be honored for sure.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
We have a question coming in for you.
Okay.
This is coming from Leroy Crampy. We know we're not going to take a lot of your time, but this question, it says that, are the books of the minor prophet arranged in chronological order?
The answer is no, they're not. I teach them at the school in chronological order to try to help the students get an idea of the flow of the material. But no, they're not arranged in our English Bible in chronological order like I wish they were. But no, the answer is no, they're not.
All right. They are not arranged in chronological order as Brother BJ answered the question. It says, can you let us? Okay. So I think I saw another question. The technicians, please help me. Okay. So it says that, thank you, Brother BJ and Jonathan. Please, my question is, God revealed his commandments and statutes to Israel, so they had no excuse. But what was God's basis for judging the Gentiles?
Yes. There's obviously some sense in which God had revealed himself to the Gentiles. Otherwise, he would not have held them accountable for the violations and transgressions like he did the Ninevites. So before the law of Moses was ever given, Adam and Eve were under divine law. I would point out that Adam and Eve were not under the law of Moses. We read about them in the books we know as the law of Moses, but Adam and Eve lived before the law of Moses was ever given. But they lived under divine law. All of the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, none of them lived under the law of Moses, and yet they all lived under law to God. And so it's not true that God's divine law is dependent on the law of Moses to exist, because God's divine law for nations existed even before the law of Moses was ever given.
Interesting. So, Patrick, yes, God had given them a way to know Him, and therefore there was a basis for His judgment on them. Any other question coming through the technicians? You can put them. Please, if you have a question, this is the time. We just have few minutes to go. Our speaker has other engagement, and we really want to let him go. So if you have a question,
I've got about 15 minutes. I'm good. I can sit another 15 minutes if there are questions. Be glad to answer. Yes, sir.
Awesome. So our speaker is sparing us another 15 minutes, which is great. Rabija, there's this question that people normally ask. You know, you go through the minor prophet and you listen to what they were saying. It seems like these people live in various times, and so why do we have their books kind of pushed to the back, if I mean, for want of better word? Like, why are they at the latter part of the minor of the Old Testament Bible? And then which of these books would you say that is the first, and which one would you consider as the last books of the Old Testament?
Yeah, that's a good question. The only reason they're put near the back is because of the natural flow that goes from the law of Moses to wisdom literature to the prophets. The historical books tell us about the kings and everything. And the prophets, I think also it's probably because they were the ones preparing us for the arrival of the Messiah, the Christ. The very first book, some dispute this date, but I do believe there's evidence that Obadiah would have been the first of the minor prophet books, dating around 845 BC. And then following that, you've got Joel, would probably be next around 830 BC. Follow that up with Jonah, which would be in the neighborhood of 773 BC, followed by Amos and Hosea in the 755 range and 745 to 725 range. Micah's probably in the neighborhood of 730 before Christ. And then you've got Zephaniah and Nahum and Habakkuk, all about 100 years after Micah, in the 630 to 625 BC range. And then you've got Habakkuk, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. Habakkuk's 625, but Haggai and Zechariah are both 520 BC. We know that for sure. And Malachi would be 440 BC. Of course, the book of Nehemiah is about 445 BC. So our English Bible is not at all in chronological order. And so those are the approximate chronologies for the minor prophets.
Interesting. Thank you so much. We have a question here. Akowa says that what kingdom was this prophet sent to Israel in the north, Judah in the south, or foreign nation? Like, who was reigning at the time? So I don't know whether you get a question, because I don't, honestly.
Okay. The answer to your question is many different people, many different prophets, were being sent to many different places. The northern kingdom sometimes the focus was more on the south, but even those prophets were oftentimes spilling over and saying, hey, there's going to be a judgment coming for Judah as well. Even though Hosea was primarily sent to the northern kingdom of Israel, he did let Judah know what was coming. And so you've got the good kings in the south occasionally, no good kings in the north, and you had prophets had to deal with all of that.
Right, right. There's a question here that someone sent, but I want to add one more question to it. Then you help us answer that. His question is, what do we mean by minor prophet? And so my other question I want you to add is, when you look at these prophets and the arrangement, it seems like they live in a different time than some of the kings and other prophets like Jeremiah, Isaiah, Elisha, Elijah. So were these prophets, some of them living at the time that these people lived and during the time of these kings?
That's why it's helpful. To know the history books in connection with the prophetic books. We know for a fact that Jeremiah was preaching at the same time Josiah was king, because when Josiah died, Jeremiah lamented his passing.
Yes, sir.
And we know that Isaiah went to preach to Hezekiah. So there's often information given in the prophetic books and the historical books that when you merge the two together, you get a clear picture. Plus, a lot of the minor prophet books will begin by saying, this prophet reigned in or prophesied in the days of the reign of, and then it will list the kings that were on the throne at that time of his reign. So, over his prophetic work, rather. And so, yeah, and as far as what's meant by the term minor prophets, it certainly doesn't mean the material is less important. It just means the length of the books is, generally speaking, much smaller than the large Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel. Those are large books. Lamentations is not large, but it gets lumped in with Jeremiah because it's the aftermath to the story of Jeremiah. And as a matter of fact, in ancient copies, Jeremiah and Lamentations were together. And so that's why Lamentations gets lumped with the major prophets, major in size, not in importance.
Okay. So I just want to bring in one more academic question. So when you look at these books, were they named after these prophets originally, or like it was named after they were gone and maybe during the Bible translations and all that?
The names would have been primarily understood by Ezra, who was a scribe who did a lot of compiling of books. And by the time of Josephus, who was first century, there were 22 Old Testament books that were recognized as belonging in the Bible. Now, you might say, well, wait a minute, we have 39. How did they only have 22? It's because we count 1st and 2nd Chronicles as two separate books. They counted them as one. 1st and 2nd Samuel, we count as two. They count as one. Some of the books like Jeremiah and Lamentations were often put together. We count them as two separate books. They wouldn't necessarily. So their 22 is exactly the same as our 39. And there's no way that God revealed scripture to mankind and then failed to make sure we have all that he wanted us to have. So that's the beauty of providence, is God took the inspiration that was recorded, maintained it providentially so that you and I would have all that God wants us to have that pertains to life and godliness. So these prophets were oftentimes the authors of their books. And then other times there might have been someone, a scribe like Ezra, that recorded things regarding their work and put it in print.
Awesome. Someone made a comment here. I don't know whether you agree with him. He says the Jews worship idols even more than the Gentiles.
Sometimes it depends on what time frame you're talking about. You know, there are certainly times and pockets of times when people were worshiping in various, you know, amounts. But truth be told, the Gentile nations, the heathen nations, are the ones that God didn't want the Jews hanging around because of Deuteronomy 7 says their sons and their daughters will turn you to idols.
Yes, sir.
Solomon didn't turn the Gentiles into idolatry. The Gentiles took Solomon and turned him to become an idolater.
Yes,
and so, yeah, I would agree that sadly, a lot of times the Jews ended up being even as idolatrous, if not more than some of the others. But they were brought into that by the influence of the heathen nations round about them.
Awesome. Awesome, sir. We really appreciate you. If you have some few words before we wrap up for today.
I thank you so much for the opportunity to be a part of this great event. I appreciate so much what you all are doing. And I'm sorry that I'm scheduled to go speak somewhere else here in about 20 minutes. And ordinarily, I would have liked to have spent more time with you, and hopefully next time I'll be able to.
We really appreciate, even if we have had few minutes of your time, we would have still enjoyed you so much. And we really appreciate your work, sir.
Thank you for your work. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. That is Brother BJ Clark coming from Memphis School of Preaching. He's the director of the school. He has a lot to do every single day, and we really appreciate the effort that he puts up for the work of God, both in the United States and around the world. And he does some mission. I don't know whether he still goes to do. Yes, I think some few months ago he went to India. And yes, it has been an exciting night looking at how he has been able to bring a lot of things. And in fact, listening to him, I'm like, oh, I have a lot to bring out in Habakkuk. And so we really appreciate Brother BJ Clark for his work in the brotherhood. Ejebo day one, Ahani Edigu. Otemenka
Yeah, Mitunka.
Good. Ahana did day one akwakosi.
Yes. Study Edi Kankai, a teacher is an experienced one.
Yes,
because
sir.
with me attach all the 12 minor books, no, and he's been able to connect all the controlling teams and summarize them. And you could see that right from sin has been a problem of man. Until always a judgment is coming. And then when judgment is coming, the people are punished. There's a divine judgment on the people. But onipa eye bone a osan kye se daakye nyankopɔn de akwanya eba ama nipa atima agye ne ho efiri bone mu. Me the question bi ma ba went me amisa no. Say the okan no say all the your friend is saying minor prophet talks about the coming of Christ with exception of Jonah. And there is a hope for us, and like I said earlier no, nyankopɔn de akwanya ama yɛn sɛ daakye sɛ yɛyɛ ne pɛ ne yɛtena n'asɛm mu a Yesu Kristo ba a waba no ɛyɛ mfasodeɛ ɛma yɛn nti ɛtwa sɛ yɛsua ɛfiri Old Testament ɛyɛ minor prophetic books ne mu sɛdeɛ Israel ɛyɛ bɔne na wɔn ani nyankopɔn asɛm so na ɔde judgment ɛbrɛ wɔn no saa yɛpii so sɛ yɛndi nyankopɔn asɛm a ɛso a nyankopɔn de atemu ɛbɛbrɛ nti sin has been the problem of man right from the time of Adam. Nti we have
it is just interesting. It is just interesting. Like I mean, I'm a whole question out, so send it, I didn't see it, but looking at your question, I mean, Miami Kramit man song, and it said, looking at Jonah spent time speaking to a Gentile nation, and not a single time was he really turning to the a friend saying the Jews to really, condemn them or say anything about them. So I guess that's the main reason why you see that Jonah doesn't come. Jonathan, Joe, say obetuma join in yenim say wabre enye easy say obekinka twi sa na Joe we need to remember say Northland Church of Christ Columbus, Ohio womo ebom modern so yasene na yetumi say dwumade nye omonko a ye doorstep clinic Takrade also branches bebre Western region. Isaac Beza the London Boga Isaac Beza so abo juma brother Hammond so abo modern aso yasene yema me Yvonne AJ aso ye na sene yo edino edoso my here na abobiatra Patrick Kabi incoming MP.
One who is a comment on kind of Nachin Wajo Samba. I kind some few comments about a ja who's not say Sylvester is watching live from some part of the world. Who say Hadassah the Kugat is here is watching live from Kupudia. Camping Leroy is watching us from Leroy Ireland. Who say a comment in a chabusa but say be chabu.
We are still live on Charity TV right here.
You can say or here from KSTU. Anna Mahun say Kumasi
Technical University. Okay,
I think so. Anna Joshua and so say, can anyone assist me in downloading the app? Just go on your app store. So you use Android, I just go on your Google Play Store. So you use iOS, I just go on App Store and just search Chariot TV app. Search Chariot TV app, it will pop up. Well, and I we are. I know who is scanning. So when you scanning, I say, I mean, mankind. JB Prince is watching you live from Kumasi. God richly bless you. All your comments have coming in. But the comments are many. We can't read. Jeff, as someone say, insightful, solid. Let's
read that. Go back. The end of the one will be that adaji trotting tintin. Yes, you be that Jack was it great insight from the minor books and a solid translation from I meaning the entire Okojiska na Obemonia.
Okojiska. But what is Akwaja de Woodie? Aja de Woodie, your mommy Yvonne, Jesus, good afternoon, brethren. We are live. The comments are coming and they are coming. Patrick Kabi, and you know, Lawrence Kwam's great work, good job from Obed Moti. Obed, you say, what's happening? Nyamiadom edi form humano yesia
minor prophet ehwasem ne eka
major message. Shadrach, Jonathan Yadio, it's not easy to translate these whites. Sometimes or kashe no more they say make I say na me school me English na lecture bi wa mama class broni or kasa me tefi it just obekokra de ne wa ngokra na de translate but putting that one aside, I think that we should encourage our brethren to share and then some of them to join the program because some of the analysis that we are getting, that in-depth analysis. No?
Yes,
maybe until today, some people thought the books were arranged in a chronological order. If you don't get this understanding, and you interpret the Bible now, you need some of these things, the themes and others, to be able to help us in our interpretation of the Bible. So these ahead of us and are important for us to learn something new in addition to what we have been taught earlier. And we have diverse group of teachers who come on board to help us with our understanding of these issues.
Exactly. And Joe, having said that, the audio basis here, and let's bring people's attention on what is coming up tomorrow. Tomorrow, we are beginning the books. In fact, said that brother BJ Kine, the books are not arranged chronologically, but for the purposes of the flow of our, lessons, yes, you go by the way it is arranged in the Bible. So we're going to start with Hosea. Hosea, I mean, another powerful speaker is coming tomorrow. Brother Terence Dinde. He is the director of Texas School of Preaching. Texas School of Preaching. Powerful speaker. And ono enede Hosea no ebo ochina.
Na unim se Hosea no edifo no nyina sa edifo no o ma yesua no. Ko fo atoto amom guy name there.
Oh sa minimum guy names go
Hosea no almost say Hosea no or a broken hearted prophet. Inti boys na boys na omakoma ebu no. As a boys ni bu omakoma ebu obabi atu
akoma.
Obabi atu akoma. Omo de ni Hosea homa no. Omo de particular be say ne yere ti na akoma ansa na also ni mu ambia.
Oza.
Ai ne yere mi ni mi yere nti me ka mi nsuro. Me ka na me de me team so. Ne yere ti na akoma sa be 3 years ansa na unia o jam nti Hosea de homa broken heart for no.
Broken heart. Na Joe, the akan me ma on kan ne. Achana mayehu prophet na oto aso.
Me baba say me ne boys na boys na chi go nti.
But you go on. I Charity TV. I have in the studio Daniel Ofosa Samoa and Jonathan Mensabo. Daniel Ofosa Samoa Esum Ewo Legon Church of Christ. Danny say oh a lawyer and I say oh yeah be a lawyer.
Lawyer.
Okay. So Daddy is in the process of becoming almost say ESQ, say EQSO, and I say ESPA. Now I can't need the home. And you know, yeah, bompire. Danny, we really appreciate you for coming today. We hope that Nyankopon Edomia China and maybe the other subsequent days over time, you'll be able to join us live on the show as we prep up for the coming speakers. All right. So for Daniel Ofosu Asamoah a member in the Church of Christ Saranso and Jonathan Mensabonso Joe will be back because our time is almost spent. We have a few minutes to wrap up until we'll be this is your time. Okay, Jonathan, I'm signal. I said no, he is not having anything to say before we go. Remember, say, Charo TV. We are live on YouTube, Charo TV, on Facebook, Charo TV. Obed the Abase, Enya no Crescent Yerinium. We use the word in Sabodenche, but to translate it between more Esawara. Into the first day of digital lectureship. Na yabomodin say Nyankopon de dom ya ochena yebe say ginamu din na yetumi atwa dwumadi no so ewo Charity TV and Church of Christ TV. Bomodin say you will share and remember some mamin ka we ncherem because Facebook has a policy say yeah live show we be delete free on internet. Oko yen Facebook platform no so say yasa download the video no e dey ato hobio etu ko hu ni sa we just want you to note say enye bibi foforo we are just trying to make sure say in case say opese hu lesson bi now go through you'll be able to have the lesson and then let me advise you say obomoden ko like yen YouTube channel na all the lessons will be lined up for you and you will be able to have them especially in our playlist as we enjoy this digital lectureship. My name is Shadrach Opon, and I have been your moderator for today. Until we see you tomorrow as we begin Hosea. I mean, tomorrow is the beginning of taking all the books one by one and going through them for the rest of the next 12 days that is coming up. I hope you will make time with us. God bless you, and we will see you tomorrow.
This is Chariot TV.
2 churches, 1 mission. Ready for something different this August? Chariot TV, your single source of truth, and Church of Christ TV bring you the digital Lectureship 2026, 15 days, 1 powerful theme. Minor books, major messages. We're exploring the major messages of the minor prophets. Speakers, the voices you've probably skipped over, but really shouldn't have. Catch it live every single night, starting Saturday, August 1st, running through August 15th, 7 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, 2 p.m. Central. Brought to you by Chariot TV and Church of Christ TV. Supported by Northland Church of Christ, Columbus, Ohio, and Doorstep Clinic. Head to www.chariottv.com. And don't forget to follow us on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube.